All right, what is up? Welcome back. This is episode 4 of the Big Screen Banter podcast. I'm your host, Aiden, joined by our other two co hosts, Carter and Kyle. If you guys want to go ahead and say what's up.
What's up? Back for, like we said, episode 4. Almost pretty much a month into this thing
Yep.
already. Let's keep it rolling.
Episode 4 of 400.
Probably more than that. The way we're going,
800. My bad.
movies just keep releasing. I'll do this
400
till
by the end of the year.
I'll do this till I'm 30. I don't know if you count the mini episodes. If we keep those going, it might be. With the mini episodes, it might be. All right, but
Time to plug the mini episode. Did a
let's
mini
plug the mini
episode. When was it? A few days ago.
Yeah,
I
went up a
wasn't
few
here
days
for
ago.
it, but our other two guys popped it off. I mean, go watch it. Dune Prophecy trailer, right?
Yeah, it was exciting. We spent it's only about 7 minutes of your time. If you can watch the video, then you can see the trailer along with us, see our reactions, hear what we thought about it afterward.
Yeah. Pretty
And
good.
that'll be coming with more trailers too once we get more trailers later in the year for movies releasing, I guess later in this year and next year. So
Absolutely,
expect more mini episodes.
absolutely.
Exactly.
All right, so just gonna jump right into this with our weekly updates before we get into what we've been watching, what's been going on, what's new, guys.
I once again for me it's really same old as always. Pretty busy week for movies this week for me as opposed to other weeks. I had a lot of time on my hands this week, so I knocked out some good first time watches.
Carter, what about you, man?
More of the same. Same as always. I was a little more busy this week, just with like some graduation stuff for like siblings. So didn't watch as much, but somehow got. I always seem to watch more than I think I do. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, same here. This was my shorter week at work, so I got to kind of hang out, saw a lot of movies this week. We'll continue to see some more movies into the weekend, but yeah. Um, so you said this was a pretty busy movie week for you, Kyle. So what have you been watching, man?
So I kind of bought it back in time for uh my first watch of Doctor Strangelove. Great Kubrick movie. I mean, really not much else to say about it. It's really one of the if you're a massive movie fan, it's one of those movies that you almost have to watch eventually. It's kind of essential, but it's just a great movie. I watched not a movie, but I binge watched on Netflix Baby Reindeer, and that show is so fucked up. It's so weird, but it's so good. Um,
Yeah, I still haven't gotten around to
Written
it.
by Richard Gadd, and a lot of it, and he is the main actor in it too. A lot of it is based off of a true experience that he went through. So, I mean, to watch someone pretty much acting as they relive stuff they went through, it's just something about it that's so uncomfortable, but the show is so good. And I completed one of the greatest trilogies of all time, the Before trilogy. I don't know why it took me so long to get around to watching Before Midnight, but I don't know if I was waiting for 9 more years like they do in the fucking movies, but I got around to it. It's a great movie. Completed, like I said, one of the best trilogies ever. Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke do not miss when they're together. And to complete it, to complete the busy week, um, get to more of this later. But my favorite movie that I watched so far this week, I saw the TV Glow,
Sweet,
and
sweet.
that pretty much. There was more in between there. Nothing really too special. I watched The Dictator. Funny fucking movie.
Dictator's
Um,
hilarious.
movie's so random, but it's so funny. But yeah, there was more in there, but those are really the highlights.
Carter, what
Nice.
about you, man? What have you been watching this week?
So last week, right after the episode, ended, I hightailed it to go see The Strangers Chapter 1 because I love horror movies. I'm really big into it. And the first Strangers, I don't love it, but I do think that it's one of those rare horror movies that, like, as flawed as it is, at the end, it still got under my skin and like creeped me out.
Mhm.
And the second one, me and Kyle were just talking about this right before the podcast. The second one is just so over the top, and it's such a stark contrast to the first one. But it's fun. It's a fun time if you haven't seen the second one. So I went and saw Chapter 1, and I did not like it at all. I think there was a little bit of some good cinematography in there, and it kind of just ends there. And that was about it because if you want to watch a Strangers movie, you can save your money and watch the first one because this is pretty much just the first one in a different setting. So that
And
was
the way
kind of a
that they were
bummer.
hyping this one up, like you heard so much about it as opposed to the second.
yeah.
I mean, the first one came by. I can't even, my mind doesn't go back to the point of that movie being promoted. But the
Yeah.
second one, like you really didn't hear anything about the second one. But like this one, it was like, oh my God, they're making new Strangers movies.
It was
It's
everywhere.
going to be awesome. But
3 of them.
It
Yeah.
was absolutely everywhere.
yeah.
Oh yeah. And so that was, I don't know if I'd say it was a disappointment, but I was looking forward to it. I try and like anticipate every single movie I see, and so it ended up being a disappointment. And then I love John Carpenter. He's directed some of my favorite movies of all time: Halloween, The Thing, Assault on Precinct 13. So I knocked out They Live from '88, and I didn't love it, which was kind of a bummer. I thought it was good, but I didn't love it. And so that was a bummer. And then I watched David Cronenberg's Possessor Uncut because I saw that get hyped up on like some Reddit post about like the best effects in movies. And it was good. Possessor's good. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
No, I've
I have
never seen
not.
it.
It's good. It's really interesting. I feel like it was maybe shortchanged by a small budget. And I watched the latest Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie from 2022 because I was like, oh, I saw it when I was like 20. Maybe I'll have like more of a fun time with it. I did not.
Nope.
And in order to get that taste out of my mouth, I watched Fury Road to prepare for Furiosa. Fury Road, what more can be said? One of the greatest action movies of all time. I'm sure we'll get into it in our Furiosa episode discussion. Not this week.
Which will be next
maybe
week.
sometime next
It
week.
will be next week.
And then, much to Aiden's dismay, I saw Furiosa today, and I'm not allowed to talk about it.
At all.
So I will just say, you can find my thoughts on TikTok or on my YouTube channel where I'll upload a full review.
I never scroll. I never scroll past your TikToks. I always watch them. I saw that one. I said,
Dang it!
I saw Furiosa and said, nope. I've every time I like get on TikTok, it's like all of the people that got to see it today, and I'm like, nope, not watching this, not watching this, not watching this, not watching. I can't like it because if I like it, they're just gonna put more Furiosa content on my For You page. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Not doing it.
Seriously. But that's all I watched, and I'll stop there because I know I'll keep talking Furiosa. So Aiden, you go.
Alrighty, so much like Carter, when we finished the podcast last week, I also hightailed it to the movie theater and went to see The Strangers Chapter 1. And much like Carter, I did not like it. I think I gave it like 2 stars. It just, I don't know. I don't want to spoil too much because Kyle hasn't seen it, but I also don't want to take away from the fact that I know that Kyle probably won't see it until it comes to streaming. So there were some things about the male main character that I just was not a fan of. I'll put it like that. And then once Kyle sees it, we'll have a more in-depth discussion about why I despise that movie. But right after that, I wanted to double feature, get the bad taste out of my mouth as well. I went to see If, the new Ryan Reynolds movie, directed by John Krasinski, and I actually really liked it. I know that there are very mixed reviews on it, but I thought it was a cute movie. I don't really think I think it's one of those kids movies that's kind of directed toward both children and adults because there were some heavy topics in that film. But all in all, I thought it was really good. Then as far as streaming goes, I saw He Went That Way, which was the Jacob Elordi and Zachary Quintino movie that came out earlier in the year. It was okay. I saw Bottoms, which I thought was fantastic. It's actually the first time I've seen it, so I was really excited to see
Love
that.
that movie.
I saw Blockers with Leslie Mann and John Cena, also hilarious. And then I
Love that
watched
one.
the Star Wars Clone Wars animated film, so that I could add it to my ranking of Star Wars films as I'm going along. And then finally, I also in theaters saw the TV Glow, and we're just gonna go straight into non-spoiler thoughts because Carter has not seen this film for a couple minutes because Kyle and I think for the first time since we started the pod, have very differing opinions on a movie.
I'll
So,
sit back and
Very.
watch the
so
fireworks.
Kyle, so Kyle, tell us what you think first.
So for starters, I have the movie at a 5 out of 5, which, like you said, different, very different rankings. But I guess just in non-spoiler thoughts, like I said, as concise as I can be, because we're gonna get to, something a little later. But I mean, I didn't understand this movie at all. Like I watched it and it ended. Like I said, I dragged my friends to go see it. I'm the movie man, so they were like, "What did we just watch?" I said, "I don't fucking know what we just watched." But behind all that, I still have it at a 5 out of 5. I mean, artistically, it's really like it's all I can desire in a movie. Like just every frame, every shot, and there's a lot of awkward dialogue in this movie. I'm not going to go like much deeper than that, but a lot of the dialogue is awkward, and it's really just up to you if you like that or you hate that. I personally think it was hilarious in some instances, and I really liked it, but I'm just struggling to find anything negative to say about it other than I guess I didn't understand it, but I don't know if I'd say that's really negative because it's gonna drag me back to the theaters to see it again. So that's all I'll say on it for now. So Aiden,
All right. So I will start by saying this is not one of the movies where I am going to say that I hate you because you like it and I don't, or the other way around. There are some of those. We have discussed that. It might be in a separate pod episode, but this is not one. What I will say is that I disagree on a massive level. For reference, I rated this movie a 2. I think I might have bumped it up to a 2.5, but I don't remember. I don't think so though. So here's the thing, right? I like movies where the message is a little bit hidden, right? Where I got to work for it to make sure that I'm paying attention. But I was completely locked into this movie. And I sat there at the end of it like, what the fuck was that? What was it about? What was the literal meaning of it? Like, I can't even start thinking about the figurative because I don't know. I don't know what half of it. I didn't know what I was watching. Now, if I'm giving it its flowers, I do think that the performances were phenomenal. I also think that visually and technically, the movie is fucking stunning. I cannot take that away from it at all. And I think maybe if I started to understand it a little bit more, the rating would go up. It's just one of those movies I think that really does kind of demand a rewatch in order to make any sort of sense. And that's probably after you do like research on the topics in particular, along with rewatching the movie maybe 3 times. Like Challengers, I
yeah,
understood first watch. I just wanted to watch it 5 times. But
hmm
I think this one's one of the ones where you watch it 5 times, and then at the end of the fifth time, that's your aha moment. Like, oh, okay,
yeah,
this makes total sense because
and then
there are several things that say it.
maybe even again, you have to watch it 5 more times after
Yeah,
that.
to, to,
But
to like really get the grasp of it.
mhm.
But like technically, the film's gorgeous. I definitely watch anything else that the director releases because I do think that it's really good. And it's nice to see Justice Smith in a movie that's not bad because I
Yeah,
was not a
hmm
fan of American Society at all, um, or Magical Society. So that's what I've got. That's what I've got for that.
yeah. I'm trying to think because after the movie, I like went online, obviously, as you would for most movies that kind of confuse you. I think the best way I can compare this movie in watching it and not understanding it at all on my first watch is probably, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I'm Thinking of Ending Things was a movie that I watched for the first time, and I also was like, what? Literally, what does that movie mean? But for this one, I went online. I searched up a little bit, like some theories, what people think it meant, and I personally didn't agree with any of the opinions that I saw online. So I feel like it's a movie that, and that's one of the things that made me love it, is it's a movie that you could watch and any theory or opinion you have on what it meant could be right. Like whatever you thought, there's a strong possibility it was right. And really, I don't know if the director Jane Shenbrun, I think that's how you say their name, but I don't know if there's ever been any explanation for what the movie meant, but
I don't
it's
think they
possible
ever
you're
released
right.
one though.
It's like possible you're right with whatever you say. So I don't know. I think that's what made me really appreciate it more on the not understanding it side. But yeah, that's all. I feel like we're kind of tiptoeing the line of falling into spoilers, so we'll
We'll move on.
completely.
We'll move on. All right. So this is the greatest segue into the biggest bulk of today's episode because I Saw the TV Glow was produced by the independent film production and distribution company A24. And today we're going to tell you about what our favorite top 5 A24 films are. So, who wants to take it first? Who wants the honorable mentions
That's
for
Kyle.
the A24 favorites?
Have Kyle
Um,
go since he had
Yeah,
high
why not?
praise.
I'll go with my honorable mentions to start. I could have like 20 honorable mentions here, but I have two. My first one is A Ghost Story. Probably one of the deeper movies that I've watched. That movie had me in tears for quite a bit of it. It's really deep, dark, sad, with a strong meaning. And my next honorable mention is one of my favorite scripts ever, and that is Minari. I bought the A24 screenplay book right after I watched it. Um, I mean, there's really a lot to say about that movie. It's you're following this family as they move into America and they try to make a life for themselves, and it's really, as I said for the last one, you'll catch us saying it a lot with these A24 movies that it's just a deep movie and you really build a connection with this family. And I just love that movie so much. I don't know who wants to go with their honorable mentions next.
I'll take it.
All right.
So I've got two honorable mentions. I've got everything everywhere all at once. Which I mean, come on, Best Picture winner. It deserved it 100%. It was such a good film. And it was one of those films that I genuinely do think that if you sat down and interpreted it the way that I think it was intended, it could have been a film that like changed your outlook on life.
Mhm.
So I really did enjoy Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then my second, I'm gonna have to go with Civil War, which is I think my number 3 movie of the year right now, and it is absolutely just it's a banger of a film. And I think that the thing that makes it such a banger is like anti-war movies are kind of a touchy subject for me because A, I'm in the military, and B, I really
Mhm.
love war movies. So when you give me an anti-war movie, I'm kind of sour toward it at first, but I think that this was the perfect anti-war movie because it wasn't glorifying being anti-war, just like it
Mhm.
wasn't glorifying war. It was just showing you truly what both sides of the spectrum and like how horrendous these things could be was, and I really appreciated that about the film.
And like not to cut you off, but one of the things that I know we did talk about when we brought this movie up on an earlier episode was just like that the few point whatever stars that this movie gains from just like having that little part of your mind say like, I mean, this isn't really out of the realm of possibilities in this country that we live in, but I think that just boosts it up the smallest bit for me. And like you said, anti-war movies, like I'm not like a huge war movie guy, but like that was one of those movies that I saw and I was like, you know what? I can appreciate that movie.
Yeah. What about you,
So,
Carter? What
for
are your
sure.
honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions.
So I got 3 honorable mentions. The first one is going to be Eighth Grade, directed by Bo Burnham. When I was younger, I loved Bo Burnham. Thought he was like hilarious, and I think that he does a transition from comedy to this drama very, very well. And I think that Elsie Fisher does a great job just portraying the awkwardness, like brutal honesty of how it feels to be a teenager. And then my second one I watched for the first time this year. It's The Spectacular Now. It's got Miles Teller and I almost said Miles Fisher. Miles Teller, and it's got Shailene Woodley. And I think that it just did one of those rare things where maybe it doesn't have like the most effective story arc of all time, but I think it just captured like a certain feeling for me of growing up and realizing that like you're going to be out of this certain phase of your life soon and really not knowing what to do about it. And then also at the same time, maybe having like a goal in mind. I think that Spectacular Now just captures that perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And my third one is going to be The Disaster Artist with James Franco. I think that movie is really, really funny. I love when movies kind of explore how movies are made. And so I think that it does it very, very well. And it somehow makes you feel bad for the guy that made The Room. So
all great movies.
Yeah, those are fantastic.
So, all right, into the top 5. Who wants to start with their top 5?
Let's just keep it in the same order. You hit us with your top 5 first.
So, I'll start at number 5 with The Green Knight. I think The Green Knight is probably, out of all of the A24 movies that I've seen, probably one of the more underappreciated. This movie deserves all the love. It's visually, I'd say it's my favorite A24 movie. It just looks awesome. Dev Patel is, he's Dev Patel in it. And he's never bad in anything that he's in. But yeah, just visually, really one of the most beautiful aesthetics I've seen, with the kind of like, it's so grim. You just kind of like, if you know the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, you sense like the impending doom or whatnot, and that kind of allows for this grim environment in the aesthetic, I think. But 4, I'm going to go with one of the greatest debuts ever, After Sun. Charlotte Wells hit it out of the park with this movie. Paul Mescal's phenomenal in it. And it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's based off of a true story. Like, Charlotte Wells wrote about, like, this was something she went through. And I mean, really not much more you could say about it. Charlotte Wells is going to be working at the highest level for a long time if she keeps that up. Number 3, a recent addition. I saw the TV Glove. I don't know what more I could say about it. We already went over most of it. Maybe it's possible it won't stay here after a second watch, but I mean, it's personally the way I feel after the first watch, is that it deserves to be in my top 5. It visually outstanding, performances great. Didn't understand a single bit of it, I'll say again. But number 2, the best coming of age story ever, and I will stand on that mountain forever. Moonlight. Moonlight. You could say it's just like, I guess in some ways, just such a simple story about this boy going through his entire life. And it's just not simple at all. It's so deep. It's so emotional.
Moonlight is a gorgeous movie.
Probably one of the, like, in terms of literally everything that it takes to make a movie great. I just don't think I could say one negative thing about this movie. And number one, a completely different animal than the rest. Everything, everywhere, all at once. I One of the first movies that I watched, like when I really started getting into film like I am now, and it just, I know a lot of people over the last couple of years have tried to bring this movie down completely. Like they're like, oh, it's not worthy of the fucking 400 Oscars that it won, but I think it's worthy of every single one of them and more.
You even think Jamie Lee Curtis should have got Best Supporting Actress?
No, I think it should have gone to Stephanie Sue for her role in the movie. But
Yeah.
just like I said, it's just a completely different animal. It's like you said, and it has the ability, like if you look at it a certain way, to change your outlook on life. And when it really ramps up into the exploring the multiverse and everything out there, and it goes through Michelle Yeoh's character and everything she's doing in these other lives that she lives. And I think the one thing that I always go back to with this movie, it's the most popular line of the movie, is when she's, I think it's in the universe where she's like a movie star, and she's with what's his name? Oh my god, why am I losing his name? Ki Kwan's character.
Yep.
And he says, in another life, I would have loved doing laundry and taxes with you.
Yeah.
Every time I
That
watch
hits
the
me.
movie and
That
I
hits me
see
in
that line,
the spirit.
dude, it's so good. And I don't know if it'll ever be dethroned from number one for me. That movie just, you have Moonlight that is so good at too, but I just have Everything Everywhere All at Once levels above the rest.
All right. That's a really good list. That's a really good list. So here's what I'll ask. Do you think that you have any films on your list that are interchangeable with films that you didn't mention at all? Like just a random movie that you could just pluck out of like the A24 Rolodex and say this movie could also be on this list.
I think the two that I didn't mention that are, I feel like if you ask a lot of other people, it's in their top five, maybe even their top three, depending on who you ask, is Hereditary and Midsummer.
Okay.
I mean, really just invented A24 horror, if we classify that as a genre. Just like terrifying movies.
Honestly, it should be.
Yeah. And
A24 horror should be its own genre.
I think if I were to bring up another one that I didn't mention, I'd maybe say, going back to one of Carter's picks, probably The Disaster Artist. We know James Franco, he's been in some hot water the last
He's been in dog water.
few years. That's a movie that I watched and I'm like, dude, James Franco is fucking talented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't take that away from him.
Yeah, like it's sad that he's a bit of a fucking idiot, but like
full-fledged fucking turd.
Great movie. James Franco's great in it. His brother's great in it.
Yes.
I think that would be deserving of another honorable mention spot for me, probably.
All right. All right. So, for my top 5 A24 movies, sitting in at number 5, I've got X. I absolutely love that movie. And I think that right now it is shaping up definitely to be one of the best horror trilogies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And if Maxine shapes up to be anything like the trailer, it's knocking them out of the water. And I think I watched that movie And it was one of those movies that I watched it, and then I was like, I'm gonna watch this again. I'm gonna watch this again. And then before I knew it, I'd seen it 10 times in like the span of a month, just because it's so much fun to watch. So that's my number five. For number four, I've got one of my favorite films of this year, Love Lies Bleeding. And I just think that Rose Glass, Katie O'Brien, and Kristen Stewart brought everything they had to that fucking film. Like I don't think there was any leftover emotion, aggression, violence, anything that they could have brought to that film that they didn't. And I mean, really, even with James Franco and Ed Harris, like I think that everyone on that cast did the best that they fucking could to make a film that is just absolutely incredible. Like I know a lot of people are like off put by like some of the body horror, or they're off put by like the ending. But for me, I think the ending made the movie better for me. Actually, I think it was like when you think about the metaphor at the end of the movie, I think it just really kind of sums up everything that movie was trying to show you, and I love it. I absolutely love it. At number three, I have Midsummer. Um, it was my introduction to Ari Aster, and it was also, I think, the second movie, maybe the third movie with Florence Pugh in it that really showed me how fucking fantastic Florence Pugh is as an actress. Um, And I don't know, like that movie, I think was one of the first movies that I watched that I wouldn't even necessarily call a horror, that just had me so fucking uncomfortable. Like I was sitting there watching Midsummer with my wife, like, what the fuck is this, and why have you watched it? And then by the end of it, I was like, oh my god, this is a 5-star movie. This is great. Like I wanted to feel uncomfortable, and I enjoyed every second that I was uncomfortable. I loved it.
And I don't wanna, get in the way of the list right now, but I feel like that goes back to what we were talking about, the A24 horror genre. Is that like, for most of them, it's like, do you even classify these movies as horror?
Because they're not scary.
Classify them as so fucking weird that you'll literally keep thinking about them forever. And that's
like the reason you're not surprised that a lot of Yorgos Lanthimos' movies were distributed by A24.
Yeah, and that goes for like, I think that also goes for like Beau is Afraid. Like Beau is Afraid is not a scary movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's not a scary movie, but it's just like so many things happen in it that it leave you so confused. Like you're like, what? But it's at the same time, it's so weird, and you could understand how someone could get scared at it because it's just so uncomfortable.
Absolutely. So those are the only like A24 horrors that I have on there, Midsummer and X. But now getting into number two, we've got the Iron Claw. I fucking loved that movie. I think I've said it before in another episode of the pod, but movies making me emotional doesn't happen very often. Like I might get a little teary eyed, but like when I say I sobbed during the Iron Claw, like the part at the end where Zac Efron was like, "I used to be a brother." Oh man, that got me so hard. Or the part in the movie where Jeremy Allen White's character like wrote the note and was like, "Tonight I walk with my brothers," and then they like showed that scene. I was like, "Oh my god, y'all want to take me out in this movie theater? You want me to cry like a baby?" And I did.
When he takes I off the top of my head, I don't know if I'm getting the exact like description correctly, but I think he like takes the boat across the water or whatnot, Jeremy Allen White's character, and then all of the other brothers are there, and it's
even the little brother.
The little brother, oh my god, that's when like I was in the theater with my friends, and like I look over, my one friend has tears in his eyes, I have tears in my eyes. I'm like, all right, this stays in the theater. Like
I think this gained it 5 stars for me easily. That gained it 5 stars for me easily. And then my number one film, as a coming of age lover, and also a Greta Gerwig lover, is Lady Bird. I love Lady Bird. I I don't know. I think that there's just something about coming of age films that have like actors like Timothy Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan in them that just kind of make movies better.
Mhm.
Because even with Little Women, it was the same way. Like if Little Women was here, it would have at least been an honorable mention. Because there's just something about those characters that make coming of age work so well. Like I
Yeah.
think that them as adults just doesn't work for me. They're supposed to be coming of age characters until they're too old to do it, in my opinion. Like watching Foe, I was like, not here for it. Not here for adult Saoirse Ronan. No,
Yeah.
don't like it.
And I know a lot of people are saying we need her in like a massive role that really like as if she's not already like a high status actress. They're like, we need
I wouldn't
her.
say she's A-list though. Like I would say she's
Yeah.
I would say she's high level B-list.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
it's gonna take a bigger movie. It's gonna take a bigger movie to make her like an A-list actress.
And it has to be like the correct movie because like one of, if not my favorite movie of all time, The Grand Budapest Hotel, like she's fantastic in that movie, and that was 10 years ago at this point.
She's great in the French Dispatch too.
Mm-hmm, like she's been gone for a long time at this point, and I mean, as long as these coming of age movies work, keep doing them.
Absolutely.
Because she's fantastic in all of them.
Yep. I agree. All right,
Car, let's share your list, buddy.
Sounds good, possible. At my number 5 spot, I got Uncut Gems. This was one of the first A24 movies I remember seeing in theaters for my friend's birthday. I was still in high school, and so I was like, I'm interested to see what this movie was. And it's like, it was rare that a movie got me feeling like so anxious. I was like sweating, and this movie did that. I think
especially an Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't even get me started. I mentioned last week, I don't even care for most of Adam Sandler's roles. So we went to go see this. I was like, oh my gosh. They're like, it's an Adam Sandler movie, which is the worst way to describe it ever. And so I was like, oh, come on. Like, I'm getting dragged to an Adam Sandler movie. Like, this is terrible. And we sit down, and he's like being serious 99% of the time. And I was like, whoa, what the, like, Adam Sandler continues to surprise me. And so I think he gives one of his best performances here. And I think that everyone here is just like on top of their game. The only reason it's at number 5 is I haven't rewatched it lately, but I did pick it up on Blu-ray, so I'm planning on doing that soon. But I think that just the score is very unsettling as well, and I love the story it tells about like greed. Coming in at number 4, another story about greed. It's by the Safdie brothers. It's a good time. So number 4 is A Good Time, another Safdie brothers movie. Robert Pattinson is so good in this movie, and it's just very intense. I love just how dark it is and how quick the movie goes by. And I think that the only thing holding it back is I'm not a huge fan of like Benny Safdie's acting in this film. And that being said, even though I have that complaint, I still think it's like top 5 A24. That and Uncut Gems are always neck and neck, but I think both films just do such a good job of showing how intense like such small things can be. They're not very grand. Like nothing in Good Time or Uncut Gems is like so bombastic and over the top, but it's so intense and it's so anxiety inducing. Number 3, I'm taking a page out of Aiden's book. I got Lady Bird. Everything that you said, I'll just echo. Greta Gerwig does such a good job with this coming of age story. Saoirse Ronan kills it here, and this was one of the first another one of the first A24 movies I watched, and I was like, wow, this is like really just hits me on like another level. And I find it not relatable, but it like hits a chord for me to where I'm like, yeah, I can relate to quite a bit of this. Like, I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is me, but quite a bit of it is just so relatable and how it feels just so real and the struggles of everyday life. And then number 2, I got another coming of age movie that hasn't been mentioned yet. It's mid-90s. This one
great movie
is really special to me. Jonah Hill just kills it as a director. Pardon me. And I just love like the skateboarding culture and just how like it just seems so I can't think of the right word. It just seems so like fun and yet like goofy, to where they just do like the dumbest stuff, like hang out and like skate on park benches, and yet it still looks cool in this movie. And I think that the character of Sunburn, and then I can never remember, oh, what's his name? Sunburn, and then Ray are just like so, or Stevie and Ray. I love their relationship and their dynamic, and I think that although maybe like the last 10 minutes of the film, it kind of ends, it just has like a bit of a weird note with something that happens in the third act. But that being said, even though that happens, I still really enjoy the film, and I find it to be just like very engaging. Again, I'm a sucker for movies that just capture a point in time so realistically. And I wasn't alive in the mid 90s, but man, this feels like it just captures a lot of like my childhood.
It's one of those movies that it's like if you're a kid that is the age of what's his name? Sonny Soljic or whatever his
Stevie?
name is. Yeah, his character, when you're like the age of his character and you look at like what those kids are doing, like the skateboarding and stuff, when you're his age, you'd look at that and you'd be like, oh my God, like I want to be like them.
Yeah.
Like I want to hang out with them and I want to be cool. And I feel like that's kind of where, because it's just that sense of being so real, in which most A24 coming of age movies do. That's just it. It gives it that feeling.
Agreed. And my number one spot is going to be The Iron Claw. This was like my second or third favorite movie of last year. It was so good. And unlike Aiden, I get emotional in movies very easy. I'm not extremely emotional like in real life. But when movies just have like a gateway to my emotions, to where if I see something that's just like super emotional or is very genuine, like this film is, it just breaks me down. And so I spent the last like 20 minutes just like sobbing in the theater. And I think Zac Efron gives one of the best performances of last year. Easy. And Jeremy Allen White is a great supporter. And everyone else who plays in the cast, like Lily James, phenomenal. And even down just to like little moments between the brothers is so good and just feels very heartfelt. Like I have one brother, and yet this movie still like hit home for me and made me think and reflect of like just my relationship with my siblings, and like, wow, what would happen if something like this happened to me? Or like, and like what little moments would be adding up in my head to this. So
yeah,
this movie just,
I just don't know.
I can't.
I don't know if I've ever seen like a movie like so good at like portraying a family dynamic and brotherhood. Yeah. Like it should. When you see a movie and you know the main character has siblings, 95% of the time the siblings are just going to be side characters that you see every now and then. They're there to piss off the main character, as you know, any like teasing relationship between siblings would be most of the time. But like the way that movie like portrays brotherhood is it's so real, because you get that they were almost forced into this life by their father. And it's like that was it really their true destiny to become these professional wrestlers? And you see that through their relationship, and like we're talking like this movie isn't a true story as well. And that just adds to, because I've seen so many people say this movie is like, it tries too hard to make you cry. I'm like,
but this is people's lives. Like there are people that actually went through this.
I'm like, shouldn't that make it make you like appreciate it more, that like the story is that tragic? I don't know. It's just I didn't have it in my top 7 or 8 or whatever, but I still have it at a 4.5 out of 5. And I mean, if that goes to show how deep A24 is as a production company,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely. Thoughts?
I all I gotta say to close is seeing Furious on Saturday. So we'll have that, like we said, that discussion next week. Possibly a short episode coming in the middle of the week. But I personally, once again, we don't want to hear anything out of Carter. But I'm fully expecting to see one of the greatest action movies ever on Saturday. I don't know about you, Aiden, if you're
As am
expecting it
I.
to be
I'm
the same
expecting it to
exact
be the
thing.
greatest action movie of all time, and I'm watching it tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Big Screen Banter podcast. You can make sure you can find us anywhere on social medias under Big Screen Banter Pod. That's TikTok, Instagram, all of the above, on YouTube as well. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.